My mother-in-law treats my husband like a baby and came over to fight with me because I argued with him for not washing the dishes. And by the way, I'm pregnant. By the time my husband called his mother over a sink full of dishes, I was already so tired I could feel my patience leaving my body like steam. I was 16 weeks pregnant, with our first baby. A girl, though at that point I still kept saying the baby because saying my daughter made everything feel too real, too big, too fragile. My husband came home from his tech support job that day before I did, which meant he had been in the apartment for hours. Hours, not minutes, not, I just walked in too. Hours. When I opened the door, my lower back was screaming. My shoes felt like little punishment devices. And the first thing I saw was the kitchen sink piled like someone had hosted a small, depressing brunch. I stood there with my bag still on my shoulder and said, "Can you please wash those?" He was on the couch with his game controller in his hand. He didn't even pause the game at first. He just tilted his head, like I had asked him to install a roof. "I'm tired," he said. "I'll do it later." I laughed. Not because it was funny. It was that ugly little laugh you make right before you say something that could change the air in a room. "You're tired?" He sighed. "Don't start." That sentence. Don't start. Like my exhaustion was a hobby. Like my swollen ankles and nausea and the full-time job and the apartment we both lived in were some annoying podcast I kept forcing him to listen to. "I'm not starting," I said. "I'm asking you to wash the dishes you used." He tossed the controller onto the cushion. "Why do you have to come home with this energy every day?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. His socks were on the floor next to the coffee table. There was a bowl beside him with cereal dried in it, because apparently we lived with a raccoon who paid no rent. His mother had called him twice already that day. I knew because he always put her on speaker for at least the first minute, as if the apartment itself needed to hear her voice. "My energy?" I said. "I worked all day." "So did I." "You sat at a desk." He stood up and said, "I deal with people yelling at me all day. And I deal with people bleeding, vomiting, crying, and falling out of bed." I snapped. "Then I come home and deal with your dishes." He stared at me like I had slapped him. Then, instead of walking to the sink, instead of taking one single adult step toward solving the problem, he picked up his phone. Nope. He called his mother, right there, in front of me. "Mom," he said, in that voice. You know the voice. Suddenly softer, suddenly wounded, suddenly 12 years old. "She's yelling at me again." I felt my whole body go still. Again. Not, "We're arguing." Not, "I messed up." Not even, "She's upset." Just, "She's yelling at me again." Like I was some unstable creature that had escaped a cage and he needed a trained handler. I said, "Are you serious?" He turned away from me and lowered his voice, but not enough. He wanted me to hear. That was the part I didn't admit to myself until later. He wanted me to know he had backup. His mother said something through the phone, sharp and fast. I couldn't make out every word, but I heard my name and I heard, "Pregnancy doesn't excuse everything." That was the first time that night I touched my stomach without thinking. I wanted to grab the phone and ask her if she wanted to come scrub the pan too, since apparently she had joined the marriage. Instead, I stood there, holding my work bag, feeling like an idiot in my own kitchen. He stayed on the phone for almost 20 minutes. The dishes stayed in the sink. I washed them eventually because I needed the smell gone and because I was too angry to sit down. That's the stupid part. You can be furious and still be the one rinsing sauce off a plate. You can be shaking with resentment and still know if you leave the pan until morning, it'll be worse. The next morning, his mother showed up. No text, no call. No little, "Is this a good time?" She just knocked, then used the knock like a formality because my husband opened the door before I even reached the hallway. She walked in wearing this beige cardigan she always wore when she wanted to look soft while saying something rude. I had on leggings, a giant sweatshirt, and no bra because it was my day off and I had planned to spend it pretending the world didn't exist. "My son told me what happened," she said. I looked at my husband. He suddenly found the floor fascinating. "What exactly did he tell you?" I asked. "That you came home angry and took it out on him." I actually blinked. "I asked him to wash dishes. You attacked him after he had worked all day. He didn't wash dishes. He's not your servant." I almost laughed again, but this one would have had teeth. "Neither am I," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "Don't twist this. You're pregnant, and I understand hormones. Believe me, I had children. But you don't get to disrespect my son in his own home." His own home. The apartment was in both our names. The rent was $1,200 a month, split from the account both of us put money into. But sure, his home. I was just the emotional tenant carrying his child. I waited for him to say something. Anything. He stood by the fridge like a decorative plant. I said, "Your son is 31. She snapped, "And he's still my son." There it was. The sentence that explained everything and solved nothing. After she left, I told him, "You don't get to bring your mother into our fights." He rubbed his face. "I didn't bring her into anything," I vented. "She came to our apartment to scold me. She cares. She interferes. She's family. I'm your wife." He went quiet, and somehow that silence hurt more than the argument, because he didn't disagree. He just didn't know what to do with it. That was when I started seeing things I had been politely stepping around for years. Before that, I had a whole museum of excuses. He was just close to his mother. He was a little spoiled but harmless. She had a strong personality. He would grow into marriage. People don't magically become adults overnight. I was being too sensitive. I was raised differently. Maybe I expected too much. I was so good at explaining my own unhappiness that I could have taught a class. But once you see a pattern, it's rude. It does not let you unsee it. He had never washed a full sink of dishes unless I stood beside him and made it weird. He never paid a bill unless I reminded him, then reminded him again, then asked if he had done it, then got called controlling for asking. Every argument we had somehow developed a third person within a few hours. His mother would call him, or call me, or appear with food and opinions, usually both. And his father was always just there, quiet, present in the background like furniture. He came along to dinners, sat beside her while she corrected everyone, and never once said, "Maybe leave them alone." I used to think he was peaceful. Later, I realized silence can be its own kind of permission. By the time everything between us cracked open, I heard through the family that he had quietly moved out. No announcement, no drama, just gone one day. Apparently, even the furniture had limits. A few days after the dish incident, I called my mother. I didn't tell her everything at first. I gave her the light version, the kind you give when you're scared the full version will make your life sound worse than you're ready to admit. "So his mother came over because of dishes," I said, trying to sound casual. My mother was quiet for a second. "She came over because you asked your husband to wash dishes?" When you say it like that, it sounds insane. It sounds insane because it is insane. I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing my thumb over a loose thread on the comforter. She said I disrespected him. My mother made this small, tired sound. "Honey, I've been worried about that family for a while." "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked. "Because every time I tried, you defended him." I hated that she was right. I hated it so much I almost hung up. She said, "I can come when the pregnancy gets further along. Or sooner." I'm fine. There it was again. My favorite lie. Around that same time, I started noticing the mail. One evening, I came home and found a torn envelope in the trash. Not even hidden well. Just ripped in half, shoved under a paper towel like a child hiding broccoli. I saw the name of a finance company on the top piece and part of the word notice. The amount was ripped off. I stood there with the trash can open, my fingers on the edge of the paper, and felt this strange little cold spot in my stomach. Then he came into the kitchen and I dropped the lid like I had been caught doing something wrong. "Everything okay?" he asked. I said yes, because apparently yes was my default setting, even when my body was screaming no. His mother kept coming over. She brought casseroles and soups and little containers of food with labels, all for him. She would say things like, "I made your favorite because I know you've been stressed," while I stood there in scrubs, pregnant, hungry, and invisible. One time she handed him a container and said, "Make sure you eat. You forget when you're overwhelmed." I said, "He remembers snacks just fine." She looked at me like I had thrown a chair. He said, "Can you not?" At work, I started getting quieter. That's not like me. I'm usually the person making dumb jokes at the nurse's station because if you don't laugh in a hospital, you'll cry in the supply closet. But I began drifting through shifts like my head was full of fog. One of the nurses I worked with pulled me aside during lunch. She wasn't my best friend yet. Not then. But she was the kind of person who noticed things without making a performance out of it. "You okay?" she asked. I almost said yes because, again, sickness. But my mouth did something else. "I think my husband's mother is ruining my marriage." She didn't laugh. She didn't do the fake shocked thing. She just slid her untouched pudding cup toward me and said, "Tell me." So I told her. Not everything, but enough. The dishes, the phone calls, the surprise visits, the way he changed when she entered the room, the way I felt like I was competing with the woman who had raised him and somehow losing a game I never agreed to play. She listened, then said, "You're not exaggerating." I needed those words so badly that I almost cried into my sandwich. That's how they keep you in line, she said. They make the boundary sound like the problem. That night, my husband compared me to his mother. We were folding baby clothes someone from work had given me, or I was folding them while he sat on the bed scrolling through his phone. I complained about being nauseous and tired, and he said, "My mom said she was never this dramatic when she was pregnant." Excuse me? He shrugged. She had 2 kids. She worked too. Good for her. I'm just saying. No, you're not just saying. You're repeating. He frowned. Repeating what? Whatever she told you to say. Oh my God, not everything is about my mom. I wanted to say, then why is she in every room with us even when she's not here? Instead, I folded the onesie badly and put it in the wrong pile. Tiny rebellion. Very brave of me. My 18-week appointment had been on our shared calendar for months. Months. I reminded him the night before. I reminded him that morning. I even sent a text with the address because I had learned marriage with him required the kind of documentation people use for tax audits. He promised he'd be there. My coworker and I had planned to go to the hospital together before the appointment because she needed to drop something off nearby. She offered to sit with me in the waiting room until he arrived, and I told her that was sweet but unnecessary. He texted while I was parking. Mom's kitchen faucet is leaking. I'm stopping by real quick. I'll be there soon. I read it twice. A faucet. Not a burst pipe. Not flooding. Not water pouring through a ceiling. A kitchen faucet. The kind of thing you put a bowl under while you call someone who fixes faucets for a living. I typed, "Are you serious?" He replied, "I said I'll be there soon. Don't make this into something." There it was again. My magical talent, turning things into things. My coworker walked in with me. She didn't ask too many questions. She just sat beside me and handed me tissues when I started tearing up for no reason. Except it wasn't no reason. It was the waiting room full of couples and partners and people holding hands and one man reading baby names from his phone, laughing with his wife. I kept watching the door. He never came. When I got home that night, my husband and his mother arrived together. Together. Like the faucet had formed a support group. She walked in saying, "It was worse than he thought. Water problems can become serious." I said, "Then you should have called a plumber." Her mouth tightened. Why would he spend money when he can help his mother? Because he had a prenatal appointment. He was helping family. I am family. My husband stood there holding his keys, saying nothing. I turned to him. Say something. He muttered, "You could be less direct." I stared at him. His mother actually nodded. I went into the bedroom and shut the door. He slept on the couch that night. I didn't ask him to. I didn't tell him not to. I just lay in bed with one hand on my stomach, wide awake, and felt my daughter move for the first time. It was tiny, like a flutter, like a secret knock from inside my own body. And I cried because she was there, and because he wasn't, and because somehow the happiest little movement of my life got tangled up with the ugliest feeling. The next morning, I called my mother and told her he missed the appointment. She didn't say I told you so. My mother has many flaws, but she knows when silence is sharper. She just said, "I'm worried about you." For once, I didn't argue. A week later, I came home to find my kitchen rearranged. The plates were in a different cabinet. My spices were alphabetized badly. The coffee mugs had moved to a shelf too high for me to reach comfortably, which felt personal, even if it wasn't. In the baby's room, the little clothes I had folded by size were washed again, stacked differently, and they smelled like my mother-in-law's fabric softener. I stood in the doorway holding a package of diapers and felt something inside me go flat. She had been in my apartment while I was at work. Not with me. Not after asking. She had used a key. When my husband came home, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the changed cabinet doors open like evidence. "Did you give your mother a key?" He froze for half a second. Not long enough for a stranger to notice. Long enough for a wife. She has one for emergencies. I laughed. What emergency involved moving my mugs? She was trying to help. She went through our home. Our home? You mean our home where my mom is apparently not allowed to help? Don't do that. Don't make this about me being mean. She entered without telling me. You should be grateful. That was the word that did it. Grateful. I said, "Get the key back." He said, "No." Just like that. No discussion. No, let me think. No, maybe we need boundaries. Just no. Because his mother's access to my home was apparently more important than my comfort inside it. 2 days later, my cousin called me. "Your mother-in-law invited me for coffee," she said. I sat up in bed. "What?" "Yeah. She said she wanted to get to know your side better before the baby comes." My stomach sank. And My cousin hesitated. She said you've been struggling, like emotionally. She said pregnancy has changed your behavior and her son is suffering at home. I got so hot so fast I kicked the blanket off. She said that? She acted concerned. But it felt, I don't know, like she was planting something. Planting something. Exactly. That week I checked the joint account. 2 cash withdrawals. Same weekend. $350 total. No note, no bill, no explanation. When I asked him, he barely looked up from his phone. It was for a friend. What friend? A friend from work. For what? He needed help. With cash? He sighed. Can you not interrogate me? There it was. The tone. Like I was a cop and not the woman whose paycheck went into that account. What's his name? Why? Because you took money from our joint account. He stood up. I said I handled it. You didn't handle it if I'm finding out from a bank statement. He walked out of the room. I kept the statement, folded it, put it in my work bag. I didn't know what I was building yet, but some part of me had started collecting bricks. Later, at the lawyer's office, those cash withdrawals never got a clean explanation either. Maybe they were for a friend. Maybe they were for his mother's faucet that apparently needed liquid funding too. I stopped trying to account for every dollar and started just accounting for mine. Then came the baby shower. Or should I say, the baby shower my mother-in-law announced like she was launching a public event. I found out from his aunt. She texted me, "So excited for the shower on the 10th. Do you need help with decorations?" I stared at the message while standing in the grocery store holding a bag of apples. What shower? Her little typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. That's how I knew she realized she had stepped in something. Oh, your mother-in-law said she was planning it. Maybe she wanted to surprise you? Surprise. My new least favorite word. I called my mother-in-law right there in the produce aisle. I didn't even move away from the apples. Let strangers hear me. Maybe they needed entertainment. She answered sweetly. Hi, sweetheart. Sweetheart. I almost bit my phone. Are you planning a baby shower for me? A pause. For the baby. Without asking me? I'm helping. You're canceling it. Her voice hardened so fast I could hear the real woman push the sweet one out of the chair. Excuse me? I said cancel it. If I have a shower, my mother and I will plan it. Your mother doesn't even live here. She can still ask me what I want, which already puts her ahead. She inhaled sharply. You are incredibly ungrateful. Then stop doing things I didn't ask for and calling them gifts. She hung up on me. I stood there shaking between apples and bagged salad, and some poor man pretending to compare lettuce absolutely heard everything. My husband called 3 minutes later. What did you say to my mom? Not, what happened? Not, why are you upset? Just straight to defense. I told her not to throw me a shower without asking. She was trying to do something nice. She was trying to make a decision for me. It's a party. It's control with balloons. He groaned. You make everything sound ugly. No, your mother does ugly things with polite wrapping. He went quiet, then said, you could have just let her have this. Let her have this. The shower, the key, the appointments, the money, the narrative, the first ultrasound, my kitchen, my marriage, my daughter. How much exactly was I supposed to hand over before I got to be called reasonable? At lunch the next day, I told my coworker everything. She chewed slowly, listening, then said, it's not about a shower. I know. I sat with that. Because she was right. My mother-in-law didn't just want to be included. Included people accept no sometimes. Included people ask. Included people don't use spare keys like they're royalty inspecting property. My coworker gave me the name of a lawyer she had used during her divorce. She said I didn't have to call. She said having the number might make me feel less trapped. That weekend, I left a note on the fridge. We need to talk before Monday. He saw it. I watched him see it. His eyes moved over the words, and then he opened the fridge, took out a drink, and shut the door. Monday came. No conversation. Tuesday came. Nothing. By then, I had stopped asking for a talk because I wanted to see if he would choose one on his own. He didn't. At 24 weeks, we had the anatomy scan. He showed up on time. I thought maybe he finally understood how important it was. I was adorable back then. We were sitting in the clinic hallway when I saw her through the glass doors. His mother, walking in like she had been invited to the birth of a royal heir. I turned slowly toward him. Why is she here? His ears went red. She wanted to be part of it. Did you tell her the appointment time? She asked. And you answered? She's the grandmother. I'm the patient. He didn't respond. When the nurse called my name, I stood up and told the receptionist, in a voice so calm I barely recognized it. Only my husband is coming in with me. No one else. During the scan, I couldn't enjoy it the way I wanted to. The baby moved and kicked. The tech pointed out her little profile, her hands, her feet. My husband squeezed my hand once and I wanted to feel moved, but all I could think was, did he do that because he wanted to or because his mother was in the waiting room and he needed a story to tell her? Afterward, she intercepted us in the hallway. "You had no right," she said. A pregnant woman near the water cooler looked over. A man holding a toddler froze mid-snack. I said, "No right to what?" "To keep me out. It was my medical appointment. That is my first granddaughter. She is inside my body." My husband muttered, "Can we not do this here?" I turned on him. "Then tell your mother to stop." His mother's eyes filled with tears so quickly I almost admired the skill. "You're isolating him," she said. "You're using this baby to control the whole family." "I didn't invite you," I said. "That's the whole conversation." She stepped closer. "You are cold." Something in me snapped, but quietly. "No," I said. "I'm done being polite to people who confuse access with love." My husband said nothing. Not in the hallway. Not in the elevator. Not while we walked through the parking lot with my hands shaking so badly I dropped the ultrasound pictures. Then my stomach tightened. It wasn't full labor pain, obviously. It was a hard, scary cramping that made me stop beside the car and grip the door handle. Braxton Hicks, I learned later. Normal-ish. Stress can make them worse. Great. Wonderful. My body had joined the group chat. I had to sit in the passenger seat for several minutes before I could breathe normally. On the drive home, he said, "She just wanted to participate." I stared out the window. "I'm calling the lawyer." He glanced at me. "What lawyer?" "The one I should have called before your mother got a key." That night, I did call. Before that meeting, I changed the lock. I am not a handy person. I can change a light bulb and assemble a cheap shelf if someone gives me snacks and emotional support. But I went to a hardware store, bought a new lock, watched a video 3 times, and my coworker came by during her lunch break to help me install it. We were both standing in the doorway with screwdrivers, sweating and proud, when she said, "This is either empowering or insane." "Both," I said. The new key felt heavy in my palm. When my husband came home, he tried his key and it worked because I had left him one. Then he saw the old lock on the table. His face went pale. "You changed it?" "Yes." "Without talking to me?" "Like you gave your mother a key without talking to me." He reached for his phone. I said, "If you call her right now, you're proving my point." He froze with the phone in his hand. "You humiliated me," he said. That almost made me laugh. "You mean I humiliated your mother? She'll be hurt." I was hurt when she entered my home. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. He packed a bag and went to his parents' house that night. He called it space. I called it reporting to headquarters. The next morning, I found the folder. It was in the desk drawer, behind old tax papers and manuals for appliances we didn't even own anymore. I was looking for our lease because the lawyer had asked me to bring it. Instead, I found 3 payment confirmations from the same finance company whose torn notice I had seen in the trash. Monthly payment, $480. Dates going back before our wedding. I sat on the floor with my belly in the way and read each page so many times the numbers stopped looking like numbers and started looking like little traps. The total visible balance was over $8,000. I didn't know what the loan was for. I didn't know why he had it. I didn't know why he never told me. But I knew this. Money had been coming out of somewhere, and I had been the idiot balancing grocery spending like we were just a little tight. I photographed every page. Then I put the folder back exactly where I found it, because apparently I had become a calm spy in maternity leggings. At the lawyer's office, I brought the bank statements, the payment confirmations, screenshots of texts I had taken from my own phone, and a timeline I had typed during a 3 a.m. spiral. The lawyer was in her 40s, direct, and had the expression of a woman who had heard every possible version of, "His mother is involved." She didn't gasp. She didn't promise revenge. She asked practical questions. Was the account joint? Yes. Did both paychecks go there? Mostly yes. Were the debt payments made during the marriage? I didn't know yet. Was the debt from before the marriage? It looked like it. Did I know about it before the wedding? No. Had his mother been involved financially? I didn't know. She tapped the papers. You need full statements from the date of the marriage. If marital funds paid a premarital debt you didn't know about, that matters. My mouth went dry. Matters how? It may affect settlement. It may support reimbursement. It depends on your state, the details, and how everything was handled. But don't guess. Document. Document. My new religion. She also told me to open or reactivate an individual bank account and start putting part of my paycheck there. Not hiding money. Not draining the joint account. Just protecting my ability to function if things got worse. I did it that afternoon. Then he left his phone unlocked on the coffee table. I am not proud of what I did next. I'm also not going to pretend I floated above the situation with perfect morality and a candle. I picked it up. His messages with his mother were open, and that was when my stomach dropped so hard I thought I might be sick. There were texts from during our fights. Not just after. During. She had been coaching him. Say this. She's overreacting. Don't apologize. She'll use it. Tell her pregnancy doesn't make her the boss. If she brings up the money, say it was for a friend. I sat on the couch with his phone in my hand, reading my own marriage from the backstage area. There were messages about the key. Hold firm. If you give in now, she'll control everything after the baby. Messages about the appointment. I needed you today, his mother wrote after the faucet situation. She has doctors around her. I only have you. Not for missing the appointment, for disappointing her. Then I found the worst ones. His mother called me unstable. Not casually, strategically. She might have prenatal depression, she wrote. If she keeps acting like this, you need to tell people before she twists it. My hands started shaking. Another message from 2 months earlier, he wrote, I'm scared she'll find out. His mother replied, Don't worry, I'm handling it. I read that one 5 times. Find out what? The loan, obviously. The money, the payments, the guarantor paperwork with her name on it. She wasn't just protecting him from me. She was protecting herself from being found out too. I photographed everything. My fingers moved so fast I almost dropped the phone. I sent the images to my own phone, then deleted the little share trail as best as I could. Again, not proud. Also, not sorry. Both can be true. I put the phone back exactly where it had been. Then I went to the bathroom, shut the door, sat on the edge of the tub, and cried silently with my hand over my mouth because he was asleep in the next room and I didn't want him to know I knew. I called my mother and said, Can you come next week? I need help with the baby's room. She said, I'm booking the ticket. She didn't ask if things were worse. Mothers know. When she arrived, I nearly broke down at the airport pickup area. I held it together until she put her bag in the trunk. Then I started sobbing so hard, a security guard glanced over like he wasn't sure if this was a reunion or a hostage situation. I'm sorry, I kept saying. For what? She asked. For being stupid. She grabbed my face with both hands. Don't you dare call yourself stupid because someone lied to you. That helped. Not enough, but some. Then my husband came home. He saw my mother in the living room and stopped. Oh, he said. My mother smiled politely. Hi. He knew. Maybe not exactly what, but he knew the air had changed. There was no soft landing anymore. I asked him to sit. My mother stayed on the armchair, not hovering, not interrupting, just there, a witness. He stared at the papers. What is this? This is what we're talking about. His jaw tightened. You went through my phone? Yes. He looked at my mother, like maybe she would gasp at my invasion of privacy. She didn't blink. I said, We can talk about that after we talk about your mother feeding you lines during our fights. His face went red. The messages are out of context. I picked one up. Okay. Contextualize if she brings up the money, say it was for a friend. Silence. My mother shifted in her chair. I picked up another page. Or this one. Don't worry, I'm handling it. What was she handling? He reached for his phone. I said, If you call her, this conversation ends. His hand stopped halfway. For the first time in our marriage, he didn't call her. That should have felt like progress. It mostly felt pathetic. He dropped his hand and stared at the floor. What is the secret? I asked. The next morning, he left early for work without saying anything. He ignored my texts all day. My mother and I sat at the kitchen table with coffee neither of us finished. She asked if there was any shared email from early in the relationship. There was. We had used one for apartment applications, bills, wedding vendor quotes, all that boring couple stuff people think is romantic because they're still dumb and happy. I logged in. The inbox was mostly old junk. Apartment confirmations, utility notices, a recipe I had once emailed myself because apparently I was 80 years old in spirit. Then I searched the finance company name. There it was. Loan approval, $18,000. 6 months before our wedding. I clicked it and felt my whole body go cold. Then I found another email. His mother was a guarantor. My mother, reading over my shoulder, whispered, Oh, honey. There was also an old thread between him and his mother. Forwarded to that account by mistake or laziness or the universe finally getting tired of me being clueless. His mother wrote, "Don't tell her before the wedding. She'll panic and make it bigger than it is." He wrote, "What if she finds out later?" She replied, "Later you'll be married. Couples handle things together." I pushed the chair back so hard it scraped the floor. Couples handle things together. Except I had not been a couple. I had been a payment plan with a uterus. I printed everything. At the lawyer's office, she compared the emails with the bank records and found what I had been too upset to see clearly. At least $6,200 had been paid from our joint account toward that loan during our marriage. Maybe more, depending on a few missing months we requested from the bank. $6,200. I thought about every grocery trip where I put back the nicer fruit because it was too expensive. Every time I worked an extra shift and came home with my feet throbbing. Every time he said we should be careful this month. Every time his mother brought food for him like I was failing to provide. I wanted to scream. The lawyer said, "This gives us something concrete." Concrete. That sounded nice. I had been living in fog for so long, concrete sounded luxurious. That night, I didn't sleep. My mother stayed awake with me in the bedroom, both of us sitting against the headboard with the lamp on, the printed emails stacked between us like a third person. "I would have married him anyway if he had told me," I said at some point. My mother looked at me. "Maybe. I mean it. Maybe you would have, but you would have been choosing with your eyes open. That's the difference." I hated how simple that was. The next week, through the lawyer, I gave him conditions. No unscheduled contact with his mother about our marriage for 6 months. She did not enter our apartment. She did not receive medical information, baby updates, appointment times, or private details unless I agreed. He had to begin paying back the $6,200 that came out of our joint account. Therapy for us within 30 days. Individual therapy for him if he wanted me to even consider trusting that he understood the problem. He had to attend every remaining prenatal appointment unless there was a real emergency, and his mother's household inconveniences did not qualify. He read the document at the kitchen table. His face went from angry to ashamed to angry again, like shame was too hot to hold. "This is humiliating," he said. I said, "So was being called unstable by your mother while you let her coach you through lying to me." He flinched. "I need to think." Then think. He took the document to his mother. But something changed this time. He didn't come back with her words immediately loaded into his mouth. He stayed gone for hours. Then he came home and said he needed 3 days. During those 3 days, his mother lost her mind. She called my relatives. She called my parents. She tried my cousin again, the same one she had used before. She told people I was manipulating her son, isolating him, using pregnancy to control the family, and probably being influenced by my mother. My mother answered every call she got with a calmness that should be studied by scientists. "She has bank records," my mother said to one person. "She has messages. She has medical appointments he missed. This is not a misunderstanding." My mother-in-law did not expect facts. People like that expect feelings because feelings are easier to paint as hysteria. Even his father finally reacted. At 32 weeks, I woke up in the middle of the night with abdominal pain, not cramps like before. Worse. Sharp enough that I sat up gasping. My mother had gone back home by then because she couldn't stay forever, and I suddenly felt very alone. My husband was not in bed. He had gone to clear his head after another tense conversation and said he'd be back in an hour. That had been hours before. I texted him, "I'm having pain. I'm going to the hospital." No answer. I called. No answer. I called my coworker. She picked up on the second ring, voice thick with sleep but instantly alert. "I'm coming," she said. My husband responded 40 minutes later. "On my way." When he walked into the observation room, his hair was messy and his face was pale. And he smelled like his mother's perfume, not faintly, not imagined. The same powdery floral scent that clung to the baby clothes when she had invaded my apartment. I looked at him and felt something inside me step back. "Were you at your mother's?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. The monitor beeped steadily beside me, like even the machine was waiting. "She was upset," he said. "I was in the hospital." "I didn't know." "You didn't answer." He looked down. "I'm sorry." I turned my face away. That apology landed nowhere. It just fell on the floor between us and stayed there. The last weeks of pregnancy were strange. We moved through the apartment like two people rehearsing normal life for an audience that wasn't there. He did start therapy. He did attend appointments. He did not give his mother the new key. He also looked miserable, like doing basic husband tasks under documented conditions was a personal exile. I wasn't exactly warm either. I was angry, swollen, scared, and so tired of being the only adult in a room full of people older than me. At 38 weeks, labor started at 2 in the morning. My water didn't dramatically break all over the floor. I just woke up with contractions that felt different, low and serious, and I knew. I sat on the edge of the bed breathing through one while my husband scrambled around like he had never seen a bag before. "Call my coworker," I said. "I can drive you." I said, "Call her." He did. She arrived before we left, because she lived closer than anyone and apparently drove like a woman on a mission. She walked in wearing sweatpants and a jacket over pajamas, hair in a messy bun, no makeup, fully prepared to fight God. "You ready?" she asked. "No," I said. "Good. Honest answer." My husband was there. He held my hand. He looked scared. He said supportive things that sometimes helped and sometimes made me want to bite him. At some point during active labor, he left the room. "Bathroom," he said. I didn't think much of it. I was busy trying not to separate from my own body. He came back with his phone in his pocket and wouldn't meet my eyes. 2 hours later, my coworker stepped out to talk to a nurse. She came back with a face I did not like. "What?" I asked. She looked at my husband, then at me. Before she could answer, he said, "My mom is here." The room went silent except for the monitor and my breathing. I thought pain had already taken up all the space in my body. I was wrong. Rage found room. "What do you mean your mom is here?" "She came to the reception area." "How did she know?" He swallowed. I gripped the bed rail. "How did she know?" I told her. My coworker said his name quietly, warning him. He rushed on. "I thought she'd want to know. She's my mom." I stared at him. I had given him one line. One. After everything. After the key, and the messages, and the money, and the appointment, and the hospital scare. The line was simple. She does not get to be part of this unless I say so. And he crossed it while I was in labor. Not after. Not when the baby was safe and I could think. During. While I was vulnerable and half naked and scared and in pain. I don't remember exactly what I said. I know it included "get out" and "don't touch me." And probably some words that would make my mother pretend not to hear. The nurse came in because my blood pressure spiked. My coworker took my hand and leaned close. "Look at me," she said. Not him. Me. Outside, somewhere down the hall, my mother-in-law was apparently demanding to be allowed in because she was the grandmother. I heard raised voices once. A security staff member got involved. The nurse told me they were handling it and she would not be entering. My husband stood near the wall, pale and useless. The baby came 50 minutes later. My daughter was born screaming, red-faced, furious, and perfect. They placed her on my chest, and the whole room narrowed to her warm little body, her tiny mouth, her angry little fists. I cried so hard I couldn't see. I kept saying, "Hi, baby, hi. I'm here, I'm here." For a while, nothing else existed. Then my husband stepped closer. I let him see her. I'm not a monster, despite what his mother's public relations campaign suggested. I let him touch her tiny foot. He cried too, and maybe once that would have softened me. But I didn't speak to him. Not for hours. My mother-in-law was sent home without seeing the baby. 3 days after discharge, I didn't go home with him. My mother had flown back in after the birth and rented a weekly stay room 10 minutes from our apartment. Not fancy, not cute. Beige walls, little kitchenette, stiff bed, a smell like cleaning spray and old carpet. It was perfect because it had a door he didn't have a key to. I went there with my daughter. I texted him from the passenger seat while my mother drove. "I need space." "We're safe. I'll contact you tomorrow." He called immediately. I didn't answer. He texted, "You can't take my daughter." I replied, "I'm not disappearing. I'm recovering from birth and from what you did at the hospital." Then I put the phone face down and cried quietly while my daughter slept in her car seat making tiny squeaky noises. For 3 days, he didn't see her. The lawyer told us to document everything and keep visitation calm if separation was possible. So after 3 days, I agreed he could see the baby every other day in neutral places. A quiet room at the lawyer's office once. A community center lounge. My coworker's apartment when she offered, because she was apparently collecting sainthood points. No mother-in-law. Not near the building. Not in the car. Not on a video call. Not whispering instructions through his phone. He agreed. His mother tried contacting me through every possible channel. Calls, texts, emails, messages through relatives. I blocked all of it. If smoke signals had been available, I'm sure she would have been on a roof somewhere. When my mother told me, I just sat there holding a burp cloth. "Separated?" I said. That's what he said. Meanwhile, my husband rented a small studio after a few nights in a hotel. He started individual therapy the next week without me begging him. My husband came for visits. He was awkward at first. He held the baby like she was made of glass and unpaid bills. He didn't mention his mother, not once. He brought diapers. He asked what I needed. Sometimes I answered. Sometimes I said, I don't know, because I didn't. At the end of the second month, I agreed to return to therapy with him. He told me after one session that he had said the words, emotional dependence. I almost dropped the bottle I was washing. You said that? Yes. Without the therapist saying it first? He gave me a tired look. I'm trying. He also began paying me back. $350 a month documented transferred into my individual account. Not the joint account. Not cash. Not, I bought groceries so that counts. Actual payments toward the $6,200 used for the debt I had never agreed to carry. I didn't thank him. Some things are not favors. At the start of the third month, I moved back into the apartment with the baby. My mother went home after making me promise, in a tone that suggested she would personally haunt me, that I would call if anything felt wrong. My husband moved back 2 weeks later. We signed rules. Yes, signed. Like roommates who had survived a natural disaster and no longer trusted verbal weather reports. His mother did not enter the apartment. His mother did not receive information about the baby directly from him. His mother did not appear at appointments, holidays, birthdays, or random Tuesdays without my approval. If she contacted him about me, our marriage, or the baby, he told me. If he violated that, I would leave again. He signed. I signed. The lock I had changed stayed. The individual account stayed. Months passed. He did better. That's the honest truth. He came home and washed bottles without being asked. He learned the baby's cues. He took night shifts when I had to go back to work part-time. He stopped making me the manager of his adulthood, at least most of the time. Sometimes he slipped into old habits. He would ask where something was without looking, and I would stare at him until he found it himself. Once he said, "My mom used to," and stopped mid-sentence like he had touched a hot stove. "Careful," I said. "I know," he said. My mother-in-law stayed away because she had no choice. That was new for her. Choice had always been something she took from other people and called love. 8 months after the baby was born, she sent him a message. He brought it to me instead of answering alone. That alone was such a shift that I had to sit down. She says she wants to know if she can meet the baby, he said. She says she understands she made mistakes. I looked at the phone. What do you want? He asked. That question almost hurt. Because for years what I wanted had been treated like an obstacle. A mood, a hormonal event, a problem to manage. Now he was standing in our kitchen, asking and waiting. I told him I needed time. I took 2 days. Then I gave my answer. 1 video call, 20 minutes, supervised by him. I didn't have to be present. No screenshots, no recording, no asking for more time, no visits in person. Not now, not soon. Maybe not ever, but definitely not now. He sent it exactly as I said it. She accepted. No bargaining. No, but I'm the grandmother. No, this is cruel. Just okay. The woman who once walked into my apartment with her own key, moved my kitchen around, washed my baby's clothes before my daughter was even born, coached my husband through lying to me, and tried to stand outside my delivery room like she had a ticket, now had to wait for permission for a 20-minute video call. I stayed in the bedroom during the call with the door closed. I folded laundry badly and listened to my daughter babble from the living room. I could hear my husband's voice, calm and careful. I heard his mother cry once, softly. I didn't go out. I didn't comfort her. I didn't manage the room. When it ended, he knocked. Can I come in? Yeah, I said. He told me she cried, said the baby was beautiful, thanked him for the call and didn't ask for more. I nodded. That's good, I said. It was all I had. His father, still separated from her, mailed a birthday card for the baby. No demands, no guilt. Just a card with a little animal on it and a short note saying he hoped she was happy and healthy. I put it in her drawer. My individual account had $3,400 in it by then, plus his monthly repayments arriving without me asking. That number mattered less than what it represented. I had a way out if I needed one. A small way, sure. Not a movie escape, not a new life overnight, but a door. The apartment still had the lock I changed with my own hands and my coworkers' chaotic screwdriver support. Sometimes I looked at it and felt embarrassed by how much pride a lock could give me. Then I remembered the smell of that other woman's fabric softener in my baby's room and decided pride was allowed. No, that's probably not the ending people want. People like clean endings, divorce papers or renewed vows, villain defeated, husband transformed, mother-in-law exiled to some emotional dessert. Everyone claps. Real life is ruder than that. My husband is trying. I believe that. I also believe trying does not erase what happened. He doesn't get to become a decent partner and then expect me to pretend he was never a coward. His mother doesn't get one polite video call and then walk back into the center of the family like nothing burned. And me? I'm not the same either. I'm not softer in the way people like women to be softer. I'm softer with my daughter, with myself sometimes, with friends who show up at midnight in sweatpants. But I am harder around the edges that used to get walked over. I ask questions now. I check statements. I say no without building a whole legal defense around it. Sometimes my voice shakes when I say it, but it still counts. The other night, my husband washed the dishes after dinner while I sat on the floor with our daughter, watching her smack a plastic spoon against a bowl like she had important construction work to finish. He looked over at me and said, "I've been thinking about that night." "What night?" "The dishes." When I called my mom. I almost made a joke, something mean and easy, but I waited. He said, "I should have washed them." I laughed then, not cruelly, just because after everything, after lawyers and labor and hidden debt and therapy, the sentence was so small. "Yeah," I said, "you should have." He nodded and went back to the sink. My daughter banged the spoon and shrieked with joy, completely unaware that the world had once nearly cracked open over plates and a pan. And I looked at her and thought, no, not in her house, not in her life. She is not going to grow up watching her mother hand over peace to people who call control love. She'll see me mess up. I'm sure of that. She'll see me cry. She'll probably hear me swear under my breath when I drop something because I am not suddenly a saint. But she will also see locks changed when they need changing. She will see money protected. She will see apologies measured by behavior, not speeches. She will see that a woman can love someone and still keep a door available. And if one day she asks why grandma only exists in careful little pieces, I won't tell her the whole ugly story when she's too young. I won't make her carry adult pain like family jewelry. I'll just tell her the truth in a way she can hold. I'll say, because mommy had to learn that being kind doesn't mean letting people walk into your home without knocking. That lesson cost me enough. I'm keeping it.